Hello Magic players, SkyLagger speaking from France. Last week we tried together an Esper Control deck with the Lingering Souls and SkyLagger, which was a little bit more proactive than the Esper Control we're used to. And this week we are trying the old school Draw Go version of Esper Control. So let's break the cards down. Are you ready to take control again? Did I just break it? So, in case you didn't watch last week's deck tech, why play Esper Control over Blue-White Control, or Jeskai, or Grixis Control? Well, because we have access, because we're playing back, to the most powerful removals in Modern, which are Fail Push and Path to Exile. Plus, playing black allows us to run Esper Charm. Esper Charm is a fantastic way to deal with main deck Blood Moons, and having a way to deal with Blood Moon main deck is pretty awesome. Then it's a great draw engine, and last but not least, it allows us to turn the corner, because if you can Esper Charm, then Snapcaster Mage and Esper Charm, you're just leaving your opponent without any cards in hand, and then you can start slamming with your Celestial Colonnade, maybe attacking with your Snapcaster Mage, or if you were playing against a control deck, you can cast your Secure the Waste without worrying about a counterspell. So let's talk a little bit about the lands. The mana base doesn't have anything really fancy. We have a couple of playsets of fetch lands. We have 3 Celestial Colonnade because we always need to draw 1, because that's our main win condition. Then we have 5 basics, 2 Watery Grave, 2 Haloed Fountain, 2 Glacial Fortress, 1 Drowned Catacombs, and a single Field of Ruin. I would have liked to play more, but I really think that we cannot afford more than 1 colorless mana source. Because look at this, we have very colorful spells and we really need to cast them early. So unfortunately, we'll have to be satisfied with only playing 1. This mana base is not very painful, and this is quite good. It's more painful than straight blue-whites, but it's less painful than Grixis Control or Jeskai Tempo or Control mana base, because we will be able to get Watery Grave or a Haloed Fountain tapped most of the times, and we have many basics, this Mystic Gates, Glacial Fortress and stuff, and so the mana base doesn't hurt you really bad. About cantrips, we could have played Opt, but I really think that in a very heavy control shell, you should play Serum Visions. Why? Just because you have to draw the right half of your deck. We are extremely well tuned against aggro decks, but not that well against combo or control decks. So let's say you're playing against Storm. Well, you won't need your Supreme Verdicts. You won't need as many Fail Push and Path to Exiles that you would need if you were playing against 5 colors human. So Serum Visions really help with card selection, and you can just bottom the cards you don't want and try to find the right amount of action and permission spells, or removals if you're planning on killing their creatures. So Serum Vision is very helpful to find the right cards at the right time. Then about the 2 drops, we have 4 Snapcaster Mages, because we want to be as flexible and versatile as possible with our spells. You might just want a flashback a removal spell, but you will maybe often flashback Esper Charms to leave your opponent hellbent. You may also want to flashback Cryptic Command and tap your opponent's team and give you enough time to draw into a Cryptic Command. And you can also flash in your Snapcaster Mage and flashback your Supreme Verdicts, just in case you really need to reset the field. 1 negates, because as I said, we're pretty vulnerable to combo deck, and that's always useful against control decks. Search for Azcanta. There's no real good reason not to play such Azcanta in this deck. It doesn't combo very well with Logic Knot, but if you really have to fire off a Logic Knot and exile most of your graveyard and not transform Azcanta, well, you have to do it, right? You have to worry first about surviving and then transform Azcanta. Azcanta combined with Sphinx's Revelation really helps you finding your Secure the Waste, which is your main threat if you're not planning on attacking right now with Celestial Colonnade. And remember that Secure the Waste can always be flashed back with Snapcaster Mage, and so you can play a first Secure the Waste just to chump block, and later flash back Secure the Waste and start attacking and turning the corner. Then a random Think Twice, just one, just a single copy. The deck used to play 4, but I think that's a little bit too slow for Modern right now. And if I had to play a full playset of instant speed cantrip, I would play Opt over 4 Think Twices, just because Opt is a little bit more easy to cast with Snapcaster Mage. But having only one Think Twice allows you to draw cards when you don't really have anything to do during your turn or your opponent's turn and don't waste your mana. Plus, because we only play one, we are not that graveyard dependent, which allows us to play Rest in Peace, which we couldn't have been doing if we were playing 4 copies of Think Twice. Settle the Wreckage could be a 4th Supreme Verdict, but I really like the fact that your opponent can't play around that Settle the Wreckage. They have to attack, right? They have to kill you. So even if they play around Settle, you can always exile 1 or 2 of their creatures, and that's always a great amount of value because they didn't attack with the rest of their team, so they slowed down their clock by 1 turn, and that's already something, right? Cryptic Command is the core of our deck. I mean, that's the core of any blue permission spell control deck. So, especially in a deck running 25 lands and 4 Snapcaster Mages, you have to play 4 copies of Cryptic Command. Supreme Verdicts over Wrath of God because it's uncounterable and because you will have to play Supreme Verdict against decks that also run counterspells such as Merfolks or maybe Death Shadow decks or even Storm. Logic Knot, I already told you a little bit about the bad interaction between Search for Azcanta and Logic Knot, but yeah, whatever. Sphinx's Revelation, also another Search for Azcanta-like card, plus Life Gain, because you're planning on going very long, especially against aggro decks, and because you can't afford to just 1-for-1 them with your removals, even though you have Snapcaster Mage, you will have to take some hits. You will have to let them develop and commit and attack you and deal you some damages and Wrath. And because you will have taken that many damages, you have to have a way to gain life main deck, right? And last but not least, Secure the Waste, which, as I told you, is a great way to chump block and survive enough time for you to cast a Supreme Verdict maybe, but it's also your main and most powerful threat. If you are able to cast it for 8, let's say 8 or 7, you will close the game in 2 turns. And because you have cards such as Cryptic Commands, your opponent will not be able to do anything about your tokens and won't be even able to block. So that's it for the main deck. Let's talk a little bit about the sideboard. One Celestial Purge because it can deal with a Resolved Blood Moon or a Liliana of the Veil or any random red or black creature that you absolutely want to deal with. Rest in Peace, because we are very vulnerable to graveyard-based strategies. Of course, we have Ruined Halo, we have Settle the Wreckage, but that's not enough against Dredge, against Hollow One decks, Dredge, Vengevine, sorry, and against Storm. So with Rest in Peace and Ruined Halo, you are pretty well tuned against those decks. Plus, it really hurts Death Shadow decks, so why not? Elspeth is not main deck for one good reason. It's absolutely fantastic when it's good, but it's terrific when it's bad. Let's say you're playing against Titan Shift or Storm. Elspeth doesn't do anything, but it's fantastic against mid-range and basically any fair deck. Even in Control Mirrors, if you manage to keep Elspeth alive for a few turns, she can generate a crazy amount of value. The spell is great for combo matchups and Control Mirrors, as well as burn matchups. Negate, kind of the same stuff. You could consider playing Disdainful Stroke, but I still think that Negate is better because we have Logic Knots, we have Cryptic Commands, so Negate is really narrow, but it's also the best at what it does, and it's also very, very strong against Tron decks. The Deal and Click to help us closing the game against the combo decks, because remember that we have to close the game eventually. Controlling against Storm won't really lead you anywhere because they will build up a hand that is able to get you down. So you have to get a clock and have a creature on the field and start the beat down. Vigilant Click is also very strong against Tron decks, And because we are very weak to Tron decks, we have to have Deal Click and Thoughtseize. Thoughtseize is also very strong against combo decks and against Tron, so Negate plus Deal Click and Thoughtseize are great sideboard cards against Tron. And finally, Engineered Explosives. This could be our fourth Supreme Verdict, but I still think that it's better to have a more low to the ground card, just in case, you know. Maybe you will have to deal with one drops of Affinity. Maybe you'll have to deal with a bunch of Merfolks with a converted mana cost of 2. And maybe you will just have to deal with Lantern Control stuff. And having this very versatile card is pretty great. Plus, remember that we're playing 3 colors, and that means you can also deal with a Resolve Liliana of the Veil, or maybe cast an Engineered Explosive if you don't have enough fetches to guarantee the right amount of basic lands. You can set it on 3 and wait for your opponent to cast Blood Moon, and then destroy Blood Moon with your explosives. That's it for the sideboard. See you in the games video. Bye bye.